Snake's Revenge. Just the name makes many gamers break out into hives. As far as Metal Gear games go, it's that one. The one everybody talks about and likes to pretend didn't happen. And if you don't think this doesn't happen all the time in the damn media industry, the 90s would like to have a word with you. So basically it's the black sheep of the family. You know, unless we count Metal Gear Acid, in which Snake loses his memory, believes he's a Metal Gear researcher named Hans Davis, and... You know what, no. Less said of Acid, the better. Snake's Revenge is fucking normal compared to that. But we're getting off focus here. What can be said about this obscure non-canon title from the Metal Gear series from the 1990s? Believe it or not, actually quite a lot. First of all, let me get the necessary components out of the way. Snake's Revenge is a good game. One of the biggest travesties of our modern age is that people, mostly uninformed morons and fanboys, continue to claim otherwise. It's considered by almost everyone who's ever played it to be among the best titles of its age that hit the console, and if there's an old-school NES fan out there who doesn't have it in at least their top 30 and doesn't have that facet chalked up to personal bias, I'd be duly surprised. Okay, some elaboration is needed. While the MSX2 version of Metal Gear was a great game, it didn't really sell well at all. Kojima was kind of dejected by this and got to work with other projects such as Snatcher for the PC-88. However, when Konami released the game on NES to us, something magical happened. It did phenomenally well. Far better than anyone really expected it to. I specifically remember an issue of Nintendo Power that I had as a child, where it was ranked the third game in popularity right after The Legend of Zelda and Metroid, and it stayed in that top 30 list for close to a year afterwards. Konami was acutely aware of how popular it was, and it wanted to do a proper sequel, but at the time, Kojima was simply swamped with work. So, thinking quickly, they figured, hey, we could make one specifically for the West, and they farmed it out to the team who made Castlevania 3. So it's not like they hired a bunch of incompetent morons to do it. They hired, some of their A-list for it. Anyway, at some point or another, the Famicom team approached Kojima during a train ride and explained what was going on, and that this was a Western-only port, so it was non-canon as hell. But Konami now desperately actually wanted an actual Metal Gear sequel and encouraged Kojima to actually pick up the gauntlet and do so. The Japanese fanbase, of course, had long been clamoring for a proper sequel, so caught between a rock and a hard place, and with that much popular support behind it, Kojima picked up the gauntlet like kid at a karaoke bar when he's gotten into the catnip, and hit the ground running, creating Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Let it not be said that Kojima is not a pretty cool guy. He creates Metal Gears and doesn't afraid of anything, so he actually played Snake's Revenge, and the results were mixed. Kojima himself liked it. He praised the inventory system, the diverse environments, the environmental interactivity, the weaponry. He's particularly fond of the Claymore and shotgun. It wasn't all that good, though, and he did take issue with basically the same flaws everyone else did. The seemingly out-of-place side-scrolling segments, the difficulty spikes, the fact that the bosses and enemies were generally bland and uninteresting, the fact that Ultra Games took a giant shit on the box and manual like they did on every game these days, and the fact that Snake's Revenge really didn't tell an effective story compared to its predecessor. In spite of this, Kojima gave it generally high marks. Snake's Revenge did justifiably well, becoming a major seller, and when Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake was released, it did much better than the MSX release of Metal Gear, and it's widely considered one of the console's best titles. The end result of this, of course, is history. Metal Gear 2 was created and was wildly successful. But because the MSX2 had literally no stateside presence, it wouldn't be until emulation provided in the early 90s a way for Western gamers to play the title. Hell, there wouldn't even be an official release of Metal Gear 2 stateside or in Europe until 2006, nearly 13 years later, when it was included as a pack-in title along with the original MSX Metal Gear and MGS3 Substance. Which of course brings us back to Snake's Revenge and its relevance towards Metal Gear as a whole. Kojima didn't like the NES version of Metal Gear, mostly for justified reasons, but he had no idea how popular that little NES port that could was, until Konami actually worked on Snake's Revenge. Indeed, Kojima never would have had the ability to turn Metal Gear into the empire of gaming it is today if it hadn't been specifically for Metal Gear's NES release and subsequently Snake's Revenge. So, whilst it's true that Snake's Revenge is a game with issues, and widely considered to not be as good as Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, or Metal Gear for that matter, we specifically have to thank it for the fact that there is, in fact, a Metal Gear franchise around and still kicking outside of Japan, which is kind of awesome when you stop to think about it. To put it differently, Metal Gear would have died in the late 80s had it not been for Snake's Revenge, and that's not an understatement. So with that in mind, I think it deserves a bit more respect than it gets.